The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Talking politics with Russell Norman.
Co-leader of the Greens, it is Russell Norman. Morning, Russell.
Morning, Wammo. How's it going?
Very well, thank you very much. Yesterday, John Key met with Warner's executives, come over to discuss filming The Hobbit here in New Zealand. The executives, it sounds like they had a few demands, perhaps a few more tax breaks, that kind of thing. But also they want us to change the law in New Zealand. They want us to change our employment laws. Russell, what do you make of that?
I think it's an outrageous claim, to think that this multinational company can just wander into our country, demand a whole bunch of taxpayers' money and demand we change the law to suit them.
But
what's next?
They're very important people, Russell.
Well, we cannot say that we're a sovereign nation if we go around just changing the law at the whim of any particular multinational. I mean, I want The Hobbit to be made here as much as anyone, but we can't just say we're going to change the employment law that affects tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of New Zealanders, just because Warner Brothers say they want it changed. That's just ridiculous.
Russell, they're going to pay good money to change this law.
Well, okay, what are we going to sell next, Wammo? Why don't we sell off one of our national parks or something? I mean, where is the end to this thing where we say we're just going to sell our economic sovereignty to the highest bidder? I mean, there are labour laws in place to protect people's rights. We can't just throw them out the window because Warner Brothers don't like them.
Okay, but you can blame the unions for this, Russell.
Well, the unions wanted a meeting with Warner Brothers and they tried to improve wages and conditions in the sector. No doubt things could have been done better, but the basic reality was that they were trying to improve wages and conditions in the sector, and that's what unions in the film industry have done all over the world.
So you're saying that if the price for filming The Hobbit in New Zealand is changing the law, you'd rather see The Hobbit was not filmed here at all?
I don't think that is the price. I just think that Warner Brothers have put in an ambit bid to try to get whatever they want, and they're saying we want all these things, which is what you do in a negotiation, and I just think we've got to say we're a sovereign nation. We don't just change the law to suit any particular multinational that comes along.
What would you give them? Would you give them some more tax breaks and more subsidies?
Well, no. I mean, I think we've given them 15% subsidy rebate, so they, effectively they pay. The taxpayer was not going to be getting a lot out of this. But there are advantages for New Zealand, so you can argue the toss on the subsidies. But I don't think you should change the labour law, for goodness sakes.
Do you think all this is going to cause more of a backlash for against the unions, and this sort of plays into the National Party's cards coming up to the election next year?
I think that National have played it with exactly that purpose in mind. I mean, National have launched an attack on unions prior to all of this breaking out with the changes to industrial law to try to undercut unions. And so, John Key's using this as an opportunity to stick the boot into unions. I mean, I think it's pretty plain.
Do you think, though, the message needs to be sent out to unions that, they need to be a little bit more strategic in future, less reckless. Shouldn't be listening to other unions overseas so closely. That we need to, because you were talking about being a sovereign nation and being separate into ourselves. Well, the unions didn't really show that kind of behaviour in listening to what the Australians were saying.
Well, I think that there will be a debate within the union movement about whether they had the right tactics in this case. But, when we look at a lot of, there's a lot of, trans-Tasman corporations and so forth operating now. So the unions were, the New Zealand Actors Equity joined up to the MEAA, the Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance in Australia, as an attempt to try to get that trans-Tasman cooperation happening in the union movement. I don't think it worked out as well as they would have hoped. But, you can understand why they did it.
Let's stay with kind of hobbity sort of stuff. You asked the question in Parliament yesterday in the House, what steps, if any, is the Minister of Conservation taking to protect the unique, rare and threatened Nevis species in the Nevis River called Gollum Galaxiid, or Galaxiid? Galaxiid,
yeah. Yeah, well, the Gollum Galaxiid is in the Nevis River, which is in central Otago. Is a species which is under threat of extinction. and it's likely to go extinct if the dam is put in the Nevis River. And so what's happened is that there was a case to get a water conservation order, which is like a national park for rivers, to prevent the damming of the Nevis River, and that was successful. But now an energy company has appealed against that because it's interested in putting a dam on the river and making the fish go extinct. So what we were saying is the Department of Conservation should get involved in this court case to actually protect this Gollum Galaxiid, which is, it's named after Gollum in the movies. Because it looks a bit like a golem with big eyes and stuff. And it's, it exists nowhere else in the world except in the Nevis River, and the Department of Conservation are not lifting a finger so far to actually go to court to try to protect this fish from extinction.
Is it a more recent find, this fish?
Well, there's the Gollum Galaxiids are found around the country, but this particular one, that's in the Nevis River, has now been discovered to be a distinct species. It's genetically quite distinct. It's been isolated for a very long time, and so it's kind of like the ancestors of a lot of our native fish. It has a lot of characteristics that are much older than the current native fish that we have.
Is it good eating?
I doubt it. I think it's a bit small.
Is that? So we wouldn't want to farm it?
No, you probably wouldn't want to farm it. But, like a lot of the Galaxiids, of course, form the whitebait. The whitebait catch includes a lot of juvenile forms of our native fish, and that's what it's made up of. So we do end up eating our native fish, but usually just as juveniles. And
they all look the same at that size, don't they?
Similar.
Yeah, thanks very much, Russell.
Okay, cheers,
Co-leader of the Greens, Russell Norman. Time now on